What is going on, y'all? This is the third video after the second interaction. So, for our cultural exchange, Abby and I went out and toured a small vegetable farm that a good buddy of mine works on. It's his first year as like a full-fledged farmer. He used to be a chef in a previous life. So he's still learning and he's experimenting a lot. And I thought it'd be cool to show Abby what's going on in like the kind of small first generation farmer side of agriculture. Because he mentioned that he comes from a rural area and that his father still farms some years, and so thoughts and feelings before and at the beginning of the event. Well, I don't know Abby that well. We've met twice now, and we sometimes bump into each other at the gym. But I was worried about, having enough to show him or talk about with him. I was worried about not having coordinated as closely with Chad, my buddy who runs the farm, as I would have wanted to. He's a busy guy, and because of the weather and our schedules, we kept having to kind of bump the date back. And it's farming, so what there is to show and do and talk about on a farm changes with the weather, especially at the end of the season. So I was confident that we were going to make it work, and that when we got there, farms can be interesting places, and so the conversation would just happen. But it's never a sure bet. So reactions during the event. Chad's Chad sometimes he spends so much time in this world, he doesn't realize how unfamiliar other people are, and he's very passionate about the particular crops that he's growing and why he's growing this one and not that one, or how they relate to each other in proximity or ecologically within the soil. And he can get way down that rabbit hole, and I think Abby was a little bit lost sometimes, or I felt like I had to kind of jump in sometimes and just like kind of get the plane back to cruising altitude and get kind of like a 30,000 foot view of the farm, instead of kind of lingering on the finer points. So as we went around the farm, Chad was talking about different crops that he was growing, and he was asking if there was, how much overlap there was between what he was growing or what his restaurant customers were clamoring for, and what Abby might have been more familiar with back in India. What is different about Indian cuisine that he would have grown up with, as opposed to American cuisine. I don't know that I had like really profound changes in my feelings or behavior during the event. I was really just kind of interested in getting Abby's reaction to kind of small scale first generation farming in America, because it's kind of a niche world within America itself. One thing I did notice was that Abby mentioned, I asked him, so this is a first generation farm. It's actually a kind of an incubator farm set up by the city of Lansing to help small farmers get established. And Chad doesn't have land to go home to. I've wanted to get into agriculture, and I have some kind of like vague aspiration to still do that, but I don't come from a family farm. Especially in Michigan, in America anywhere, you're not going to find family farms that go back more than 300 or at the extreme 400 years, and those are going to be very rare. In Michigan, you will not find family farms older than 150, 200 years at the very outside, and most family farms can trace back to the second half of the 19th century. So it's fairly recent. And, I asked Abi about how long his family had been on the land that his father still works sometimes. And, he could take it back to say, his great-grandfather, his great-great-grandfather, which is already farther than many family farms can go. But, and he just, said, well, before that, it just belonged to my ancestors. And so, India just has a lot more history that way. I mean, India's been under cultivation for thousands of years, and America has not. And so, it's just interesting to. Just that one comment just kind of captures the differences in land ownership, and there's a lot of history that you can notice in just the answer to that question: how long has your family been on the land? So that was kind of a cultural insight that, as a history education major, that I really enjoyed. I don't think other people would find that nearly so interesting or so just laden with meaning. Another insight that I had was, with Abi just kind of volunteered that his family would grow. He had a small garden that would supply, pretty much vegetables just for consumption in the home, and it was pretty much exactly what you'd find in a garden here. There is in 2017, which is not to say that there are not differences in cuisine, because there certainly are, but a lot of the vegetable crops, a lot of these staple crops are almost ubiquitous. I mean, the corn, right, can be found in every corner of the world, and it's an American crop. I mean, wheat and barley come from the Middle East, and they can be found in every corner of the world. Vegetables like cucumbers and carrots, and root crops like potatoes. I mean, these hail from every continent on the planet, but they are just mashed up all together in people's gardens all the time, and that happens everywhere. And so it was, I think Chad had he is. As a restaurateur, he is very interested in kind of niche, new things, and so I think he had some hope that Avi would, remark to him on peppers or something just unique to where he came from. But Abi's kind of home market, home garden, didn't seem to be this cornucopia of diversity and heirloom, ethnic cuisine crops or anything like that. It seemed pretty standard stuff. So overall, I think it went well. I wish that I had kind of more background information for Abi about just farming in Michigan, because I kind of travel along my little deer trails within agriculture, and for somebody who just is kind of curious about really big picture agricultural stuff, or even local things that I'm just not really paying close attention to, like the price of land around Lansing is something that he asked about, and it's a fair question. I have no idea, because it's not really where I am in life right now. But it would have been nice to have more of that information at my fingertips. And so it's often said that the best test of whether or not you know something is whether or not you can teach it. And so it was it kind of laid bare the gaps in my knowledge that I wouldn't have otherwise noticed if I hadn't felt pressed to explain something kind of systemically, holistically, to somebody who's just not familiar with it in the way that I think myself to be. So overall, it went well. Chad sent us off with a bag of vegetables and roots and whatever was left from the end of the season. But it was a good time. I think it was a good call. So coming up on 10 minutes, I'm gonna cut it.